There's a new push to expand a controversial treatment for drug addicts. Naltrexone implants aren't approved by medical authorities, but heroin users continue to pay thousands of dollars in the hope of a cure for their addiction. Now, the main backer of implants in Australia is lobbying the New South Wales government to fund his program. And Christian MP Fred Nile wants implants to be part of compulsory treatment for addicts convicted of crimes. Harvey reports.
It's a busy Saturday morning at George O'Neill's Naltrexone clinic in Perth. It's a last stop for people addicted to drugs and alcohol.
The Panadol 4 just indicates that you're using a little bit of opiates, and the alcohol are both problems from my point of view, but naltrexone's a very good treatment for both.
Naltrexone is an opiate blocker. Put simply, it removes the urge to take drugs like heroin because it stops you getting high, as long as you keep taking it.
So we're putting 30 of these tablets below the skin.
Dr O'Neill has patented an implant that dissolves slowly, releasing naltrexone into the bloodstream for as long as 12 months.
That's a small, simple procedure, which is essentially a big injection.
It is a controversial, expensive treatment. A year's worth of implants costs about $6,000. Dr O'Neill, a gynaecologist by training, says he's inserted implants in about 6,000 patients over 12 years. About 250 of them have since died.
These are 7 years later, 6 years later, 5 years later. So we've got a record of anybody we've treated, and if they've died in the next 15 years, we've got a record of those deaths. So when I talk about 250, we're talking about death rates that are lower than expected for that population.
Despite the widespread use of implants in Australia, there is very little credible research into the real effectiveness or dangers of the treatment. Naltrexone implants have not been approved by medical authorities, and some experts condemn their use.
I think they're risky because I've seen with my own eyes patients who have had life-threatening complications soon after having had a naltrexone implant. We also know that a number of deaths have been reported in Australia and around the world soon after naltrexone treatment.
There are some practitioners who I have concluded are motivated primarily by money.
A New South Wales coroner last month was scathing about Sydney detox and naltrexone clinic Psych and Soul, which had 3 patients die after treatment. James UNICOMB died of a drugs overdose after his implant wore off.
It was just that feeling in your gut the whole time he was addicted to heroin that the day could come.
Another patient, Grace Yates, stopped breathing and never regained consciousness. The coroner found her death was a direct result of the treatment.
The midbrain is changed by repeated exposure to these substances.
Addiction medicine specialist Professor John Saunders gave expert evidence to the inquest. He says James and Grace were not suited to naltrexone implants. They would both have been better off on a safer, properly tested treatment, methadone. But naltrexone implants were a quicker fix.
Those doctors and health professionals who've used naltrexone actively have ranged from the very committed and very professional, on the one hand, to people, on the other hand, who I would describe as absolute shockers. People who have subsequently been deregistered as doctors or had conditions of practice placed on them, and who display an absolutely unfettered enthusiasm, unfortunately, for this treatment.
George O'Neill came to Sydney last week to try and convince the New South Wales government to fund an expansion of naltrexone programs.
If we all work together, we should have this registered within a couple of years. But it does involve everybody working together rather than pulling each other apart.
It's because the methadone is making them want more.
One of the most enthusiastic advocates is Brisbane psychologist Dr Stuart REECE. He thinks the mainstream treatment for addicts, methadone, does more harm than good.
In the brain, in the craving centre, it's like a car. There's an accelerator, there's a pedal. One goes fast, one goes slow. And methadone rips the brakes out. Now, how many of you would get in a car with no brakes?
I just want to make an opening statement, George, that the blatant dishonesty and cherry-picking of data has just been extraordinary today. It's not only what has been said, but also what hasn't been said.
Dr O'Neill brought one of his patients with him to the Sydney seminar. 35-year-old PETA Walker has used heroin and methadone for 20 years. She's 8 weeks into her Naltrexone implants. How much does it cost you?
I think about $6,000.
Is it worth it?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's I don't want to go back to the place where I've been.
But this is the 4th time she's been treated by Dr O'Neill. Every other time she's relapsed, usually by taking drugs that aren't blocked by the Naltrexone. So why do you think that it'll work this time?
I personally think that it's a personal thing. I've been an addict for 20 years. It's a long time. I want a life. I don't want to just survive no more.
Tony Trimingham has been advocating for the families of drug users since his son Damien died of a heroin overdose. He's sceptical of quick fixes and dubious about some of the promoters of Naltrexone implants.
They're either evangelists and they almost have a religious zeal in wanting to promote the treatment, or they're very greedy, which is the other side of the coin. And we know a lot of people who've been ripped off but for some tens of thousands of dollars.
Radical Christian politician, the Reverend Fred Nile, wants to bring Naltrexone implants right into the mainstream. He's prepared a bill that would make implants part of a program of compulsory rehabilitation.
What I want is a system of coercive treatment for drug addicts. They have to be first identified, then referred to a social court with special magistrates who will hear the evidence and will say, in their opinion, this addict would benefit from going into a program, maybe 6 months rehab program in a sanitarium, not a jail.
Who's responsible if things go wrong, as they did in 3 cases that came before the coroner in August this year? Can the patient's family sue the judge or sue the Attorney General if this mandatory treatment kills the patient? I think this is an outrageous, reprehensible road to go down.
Adam Harvey reporting.